Music and the Sonic series go together like two pieces in a puzzle. It's something that Sonic has always gotten consistently right, even in the lesser games. The music for nearly most Sonic games are just banger after banger after banger after, but as for nearly everything in life, they didn't just come out of nowhere. These songs went through a rigorous and challenging editing process. There are even Sonic songs that just never made it to the final game. So in today's video, I want to go over every lost Sonic song from every Sonic game. And just to clarify, I'm only going to be looking at tracks that did not end up in the final game, because if we looked at every different version of every song, we would be here for hours, and I'm not trying to waste your time. There is one exception that I'll point out when I get to it. But enough rambling, let's get into every lost Sonic song. While the 16-bit version features no unused music besides like a changed main theme, the 8-bit version actually has an unused song, which comes in the form of an unused level, Marble Zone. But since the stage was cut, this track was cut as well. Up next is Sonic 2. Now, this game has a bunch of lost and cut content. If you watched my Sonic Lost Levels video, you would know that there are 11 cut zones from this game. But despite that, the game only has one song that goes unused from the game. This track was originally going to be used for the cut zone Hidden Palace, which is probably the most infamous cut zone in Sonic history. And even when it returned to us in the headcanon ports of Sonic 2 for mobile and Origins, they didn't use the original song. It uses the 2-player song for Mystic Cave, and I don't want to hear in the comments that it was the intended track. I don't want to say, oh, but in the 7Y ROM, it uses that song. No, I don't want to hear it. If you go into the final version of the game and you load Hidden Palace, it plays the cut song. So you can just... And besides, the cut track is just the superior track. It fits the vibe of Hidden Palace. It makes you feel like lost and that you're not supposed to be there. And it's such a shame that it was unused for the original and in the remaster. Up next, we got Sonic CD. Now, what's interesting is that Sonic CD has a unique soundtrack released all the way back in 1994 called the Sonic the Hedgehog Remix, which is like an obscure CD release of a bunch of Sonic CD tracks remixed. And nowadays, it's extremely rare because it was so obscure. If you go on eBay, a complete in-case CD is almost $200, but it is on my list for Sonic memorabilia, and I hope that one day I can get it. But why am I bringing this up? Well, besides it having some bangers, there is a theory that one of the tracks on there was going to be used for the Good Future theme for a cut zone called R2. I also talked about that zone in my Lost Sonic Levels video, but long story short, this stage was going to be in between Palm Tree Panic and Collision Chaos, and Naoto and Shima officially named it Dubious Depths. Now, this was a cut zone in Sonic CD, and there were two tracks in particular that were rumored to be used for this stage. One of them is the Little Planet theme, which is going to be used for the present track of the stage. Then, there's the Good Future of the track, which was gonna be Sonic Stream, the final track on the Sonic CD Remix OST. Now, this is all just a theory, but it kind of makes sense since Sonic Stream is a remix of Little Planet, and why would they just make a remix of a song that doesn't even play normally in the game? You have to go to the DA Garden, which is like a secret like music player room in the game to even listen to it. So I am a firm believer that the R2 Little Planet theory is true. But this game does have a few more tracks that go unused. One is a completely different song from the title screen, which isn't a remix of Sonic Boom or You Can Do Anything. It has a way more fast-paced feeling and leans more into rock. Then there is an unused Speed Shoe theme that is a remix of You Can Do Anything but much faster, and honestly I prefer this over the final games version. But that basically covers everything from Sonic CD. Now we're going to move on to what is possibly the most amount of unused music in a Sonic game ever. Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now, if you are a Sonic veteran, you might already know where I'm going with this. During Sonic 3's development, before Michael Jackson came down and offered to help make some tracks for the game, the team already had some music done for the game that never made it into the release, since Michael and his team already lent them the music, so they used those instead. Well, hindsight is definitely 2020 here. We did get the songs redone for the PC port of Sonic 3, but it was made with the shitty MIDI font, so it sounded really ass. But a few years ago, a beta of Sonic 3 was dumped, and that's where we got to hear the original tracks with the original Genesis sound, starting off with Carnival Night. Instead of being a slow, more hip-hop feeling to it, taking hints from Michael Jackson's Jam, it goes for a more cheery and upbeat feeling. Then Act 2 picks up the pace, being faster, and I personally really like Act 2's beta track over the final game. Up next we have Ice Cap Zone, and instead of basically being a one-to-one recreation of Hard Times by the Jetsons, we have this way more Winter Wonderland feeling to it. And while I'll say I really love the final version, I have a soft spot for this. Also, the song feels longer than 30 seconds. The loop of Ice Cap is really short, so it can get annoying, so I really appreciate that. And the second act is basically the same, but pitched up a bit, and some echo effects were added to it. Then finally we get to Launch Base, where it has this like imperial feeling to it with the trumpets at the beginning. It feels like you're walking into a military base, which it is. And Act 2, it does something similar to Carnival Night, where it picks up the tempo and intensity, but you can still hear the main motif in the back. But the music doesn't stop at the stages. There are a few more changes tracks that go unused in the game, one of them being the credits theme. I think it's basically common knowledge now that the credits theme is no doubt Strangers in Moscow. I mean, just take a listen to the both really quick. But the beta version sounds like this. Surprisingly, this version was not changed for Origins, and while yeah, it has its charm, you're going against Michael Jackson. Up next, we have a completely different track for the race menu. Instead of this slow and kind of boring track, we have this absolute banger that actually gets you hyped up to race. And like, they went so hard for what, bro? This shit didn't even make it into the final game, bro. Fuck! Up next, we have what was originally thought to be an unused Supersonic jingle. But digging into the placement of the song in the files, it's slotted where the Sonic and Knuckles mini boss theme is. Now, this track doesn't sound like a mini boss, so I'm more inclined to believe that it was a Supersonic jingle. And finally, Knuckles had a completely different theme, a far cry from his drum snare and one woo sound effect. It's like this fucking grating trumpet sound, and thank God they fucking changed it to what it was now. Well, then changed it again because of Michael Jackson. And there we have it. Like I said, Sonic 3 has a lot of music that just never made it to release. Even after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where they did change some tracks like the Knuckles theme and the credits, they were still never added back. The first one is called Broken and is performed by Sins of a Divine Mother, a band from back in 2001. Originally, this was gonna be a song that would play for one of the endings of the game, but the song was pulled because they weren't able to track down one of their members, Wiley B, to get permission to use it, so instead they just made a new song which would go to be the chosen one. But I really like this song. It has a really somber tone to it, and then those clean guitar tones transition into rock. It's like the pinnacle of edgy 2000s emo rock. The next track that was pulled was called Who I Am. Now, this track was made by a band called Magnify, and the reason that this was pulled is a bit more ridiculous, and I'm not making this up. They thought the song was too good to be put into the game, so they just said, "Fuck you, we're not giving you the rights to the song." I mean, kind of a dick move, but sure, I guess. So instead, they just made All Hail Shadow. I mean, that's a pretty good compromise. Up next, I want to talk about Sonic Rush, because there was an E3 demo that had completely different music and a completely different vibe from anything Sonic Rush at all. First off, the menu music is completely different, losing that hip-hop vibe that Rush is synonymous for. Another track that was completely changed was the boss theme. If anything, it sounds more akin to a Sonic Advance track, and it feels completely alien to Rush. And finally, the Sonic Act Clear theme is again more akin to an advanced game, but you can start to hear bits and pieces of the Rush OST seeping through the cracks. I think out of all the games that we've seen so far, this one is probably the most radically changed from the final game. Up next is Sonic Colors, and this one's pretty simple. It's just a different theme for the Hover Wisp. Instead of being more ethereal and floaty feeling, it has this sharp and synthy sound to it, and it actually sounds the most alien out of all of the Wisp themes in the game, in my opinion. Up next, we have Sonic Mania. Now, here we have two pieces of unused music. One of them is an early version of the Victory jingle, and instead of it being, a remix of Sonic 3's, it's a completely different jingle that T-Lopes made from the game. And the second one is called Egg Reverie Pinch. This goes unused in the game, but can be found in the game's DA Garden, similar to Sonic CDs. But interestingly, in the game's files, the codename for this track is called Egg Panicky. So my best guess is that Egg Reverie was gonna either have a second, more difficult phase or a time limit, and where you got close to that time limit, this song would start to play, hence the name panicky. And Jesus fucking Christ, isn't fucking Pinch Harmonic City in this bitch? Oh my god, T-Lo, calm down. But overall, some pretty good tracks. And finally, we are at the last game, and this is the one exception I talked about at the beginning of the video, Sonic Superstars. Now, while in reality, there is only one unused track in the game, the development soundtrack sounds almost completely different from the final one. Now, Jun Sonoe during development used 1 VST, Expand 2, while in the final version, he uses both Expand 2 and YM2612, giving the songs a bit more nuance. And I think the one that is most prominent is Cyber Station, where this version only uses Expand 2, and you can immediately tell the difference. And besides that, the boss for this stage also differs from the final game. Instead of using this chip tune, it uses real instruments, and it actually sounds better in my opinion. And the actual unused track is just an alternative version of these Sonic 1 special stages that can be found in the game. Take a listen. Now, finally, I want to do a quick lightning round because there's just some games that have like 1 or like 2 cut songs, and I just want to go over them really quickly because they're just like side games. First one is Sonic Advance 2, which has this unused song in the stage, and it's not known what it's used for, but it's believed to be an early version of Leaf Forest. Sonic Advance 3 also has an unused track. Now, it's not really known what it's known for, but it sounds kind of creepy. Take a listen. Now, I'm gonna break my rule again, but if y'all know, there's a game called Sonic Crackers, which is an early version of Knuckles Chaotix that was just never released. The songs in that game are just remixed versions of Knuckles Chaotix tracks, but in a Sega Genesis sound font rather than the 32X PWM. And with that, I am pretty sure I covered every unused Sonic song in the game's history. It is very interesting to go back and look at some of these songs. Some songs I absolutely wish were in the final game. Some songs we can kind of do without. But it is very interesting to look back and see what we could have had and, you know, what we ended up with. So that is really all I have to say for today, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment down below what was your favorite unused track. Did I miss some? If, you know, you have a personal favorite, let me know. And guys, we're very close to 7K, so if we can reach that, I would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, this video was really fun to make. I like talking about, you know, unused content, but like I love talking about music too. So, you know, combining those two things was really fun. So I thought this video was gonna be a bit longer, but listen, not too long, not too short, perfect. But that's really all I gotta say for today. I have a bit of a kind of a rant video for my next video, but I can't wait for y'all to hear it because I've been meaning to talk about it. But that's all I gotta say for today. Hope y'all enjoy, and I'll see y'all in the next one.